How did you start acting? In other words, what is the rise of Marisa Davila's story?
Oh, that's good. That's very good. Well, I wasn't always in TV and film. When I was younger, I started in dance. I kind of followed in my older sister's footsteps because I thought she was so cool. I still think she's really cool, but at that point, I was like, wow, I want to do everything that she's doing. So she started dance, and I started about when I was 4, I believe, and then I started competitive dancing at around 7, and I went from 7 to 17, 18 years old competitive dancing. And then, so both my parents are drummers, actually, for a living. They're both musicians. And we lived in Music City in Nashville. So, weirdly enough, my parents knew some of their classmates from where they went to university, had called them up and said, we're working on a children's project. We need some kids that can sing. Do your kids sing? Of course, my dad is like, he's like, yeah, Marissa, sing that Hannah Montana song you like, and saying into the phone. And I got hired at around like 6 years old. And then I started to become a session singer. And eventually I just understood that a lot of kids my age that lived in LA kind of had the upper hand and were just more in the space and the environment to grab hold of the opportunities. And I was like, I think it's about time. So I sat my parents down and I was like, I would really love. I said, all my junior year grades for high school are locked in. I know those are the most important ones. Nobody looks at the senior year grades. And I pitched them moving to LA just a year earlier. And now I've been here. I think I'm going on 8 years, and I've just built my resume from that time. I started in background, just like everybody else. I loved it. It was a really great way to be on set and kind of just observe, be like a fly on the wall and not get in the way, but really learn the terminology and understand the process. And then started to get student films, indie films, and then I got my SAG card, and then I got co-stars, under fives, guest stars, recurring, and then we're here. And so it's been a pretty amazing journey, and I've met people that are like, where'd you come from? And I'm like, I've been here this whole time, but that's how this story goes. I firmly believe I wouldn't have gotten this far without my parents really believing in me. And yeah, it's a love story for the arts. I mean, I
Right.
fell in love at a really early age, and I've just been able to enjoy all aspects, being on stage and on camera, and then look at what an amazing project that came my way, and that I really feel like it was the perfect. I really feel like I was ready for it when it showed up. I've said this before, but I don't think if it had come any earlier that it would have been right for me, and I would have been prepared, and it just came at the right time, and I'm just so grateful.
So I'll ask a question I'm sure you've been asked a dozen times or 2 dozen times or more. Were you a big fan of Grease growing up?
Oh yeah, I all of them. That's the thing is that I don't really. I mean, I have a favorite only just because it's one of my dad's favorite musicals, and therefore it's one of my favorites. But other than that, I'm a fan of all musicals, and Grease. I feel like I know there are musicals that came before Grease, but that specific format of a musical, I think that they pioneered, and showing that it was something that one of the first that went from stage to screen, and then now from film to television. It's always really been the first of its kind, and really rewriting what a musical is capable of being.
And so with your involvement with the series, were you always was Jane always the character you were set out to be, or did you audition? How did that process work?
I only auditioned for Jane. I truly don't. I've played other archetypes before that you see in our show, like the Susan character or even the Olivia. But I do think that this one fits more in my wheelhouse and just is who is me, who I am as a person. And
Mhm.
yeah, when it came through, it was one of those days. It's so funny. There are days in LA that go by where it's just crickets. And then you always go like, man, I wish I had more auditions. And then the next day you get like 9, and you're like, okay, I didn't mean it. Like, that's a lot at once. Like maybe we
Yeah,
could
slow
just spread
down.
them out. Yeah. And this particular day was one of the. I had like 4 voiceover auditions, 2 callbacks over Zoom, and like 3 self tapes all due the next day. So I had a really great friend of mine. His name's Marwan, and he helps me with just like relaying self tapes. And we go like, why do I have newspaper right here? But I do. And we're like, all right, done, you know, and then we're like, all right, done. And we thought you just have to keep going and you just have to churn them out. And so Grease was one of those that day. And honestly, I was so bummed because I was like, wow, I wish I could take more time on this material because it is so important to me as a musical theater project. But I was grateful that it is a brand that I understand the tone and style already, and I didn't have to really go back to the drawing board and figure out what that would look like. And so I read the breakdown, and I'm like, okay, she's kind of the outcast, nerdy girl, although she's like really bright and brilliant and has all these ambitions. It's like, okay, I know where that is for me, and she's a new girl from New York, so let's try a New York accent. So I tried a New York accent, and it's funny because, you know, when you watch the first Grease or even the second one, like they have like random accents in there. And so I was at the time emulating kind of what Frenchie sounds like, which now we know, like I didn't even know that I would be playing, spoiler, Frenchie's older sister. So I think that really worked in my favor, but I was just going off of the breakdown, and I've now looked back at it, and it was in very, very, very tiny letters, but the word series regular, I totally skipped over. Like reading the breakdown, I just thought she was like, this kind of character is normally the side character, which is fine, you know, and I just never assumed that the story would be told through her eyes. And so I think, honestly, I think not knowing that helped me not feel all the pressure, specifically on that day to do, you know, to be like the best. And I just did my best, which is what I tried to do every day. And you know, make some bold choices, as they say, and I heard back almost immediately. It took about a week, which is pretty fast in the industry. And I've since heard that from our creators, you know, Alethea and Annabelle, that apparently I was the very first tape that they ever saw, which is so hard to believe. Like, I just don't know how that happens. And they say it was the first tape they saw, and they just kept it in their back pocket, and I guess kind of used it as a comparison, or as they kept watching others and just kept coming back to it. And I'm just like, that blows my mind. And me on the other side of it, having no idea that that's the case, and just like sweating and like stressing at home, being like, is it enough? Is it enough? You know? So.
It's another chapter in that Hollywood story. You know,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. You can only write this, it seems, but no, you lived it. So that's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
So for those who do not know the series, can you tell me a little bit about who Jane is to you?
Yes. So Jane is one of the founding mothers, as I'd like to say, of the Pink Ladies. And Rise of the Pink Ladies is really just the origin story of how the Pink Lady Gang came to be. Because when we see them in the film, they're already established. You know, they're a great group of solid group of friends that really always know how to step into their own, and are able to depend on each other. And we're just like, how did they get that way? How did they get so confident and find each other? And that's what this story is about. You know, it's about having to navigate the treacherous waters of high school, or even just like the society in the 1950s, which is when we're set, and 4 years before the original, and how difficult that must have been for anybody in the 50s, let alone teenagers who just are really normally misunderstood by their peers and anyone older than them as well. And somebody as positive as Jane keeps getting pushed down by all these negative rumors, or even just people who, you know, are put off by how many goals she has, or how she's really moving up in the world, and people don't like that. And so she just runs into a lot of problems, and for somebody like her, or anybody for that matter, that just wants some friends, it's shown to be quite difficult. And she later finds that she collects these other friends along the way that happen to be going through very similar things as her. And I think that is a story in itself of like, you have no idea, most of the time, whether you know it or not, you are not going through things alone, or your experiences might not be as, you know, unique and rare as you think, but we don't often take time to get to know each other on that level, or even have those conversations. And so I think we can learn a lot from the Pink Ladies. But anyways, As we see throughout the show, it's yeah, it's how we created, why we created the gang, how we created the gang, what it means to be a pink lady, and that's the journey that we're on.
And while she goes about things in sometimes the less than orthodox way, like I would not recommend mooning being something my daughters do to stand out in the world. But Jane and the Pink Ladies are good role models for young women. And Jane's defending her own honor, stands up against much bigger challenges like racism, sexism, the double standards galore. What does it mean to you to have that opportunity to influence and inspire people, especially the younger audience, with your work?
I never thought I would get to be in a position like this to do that. I never thought that there would be a show brave enough to speak on those things, let alone um, give the voice to women to be leading that march. And yeah, no, I've never been picky about what projects I've been on because I love being creative and collaborating with people. So if it was a show about um, anthropomorphic kites or something, I don't know, I'd be so happy to be there. But the fact that it's so deep and so colorful of a project, like it's such a rare occasion, and honestly, it's like long overdue. I think when people hear about our show, they're like, "Oh, it's a musical. It's just gonna be fun." It's like, no, we talk about some really hard stuff, and I think it's a great way to get messages across, like you were saying, to people like your daughter, and to show just a firm example of what how effective your own strength can be.
That's great. And while Jane is battling these outer forces in her life, she's also learning a lot about herself. She's just a kid. So you have that side of your, of your job as an actress as well. What is it like, the kind of process? Like you've got layers to this character. She's just not up there throwing out a line of dialogue. She's going through pretty much one of the biggest moments in a young lady's life.
Yeah, she's very observant. I think one of the keys for me was just to make sure to sit back and take in everything that was happening in the scenes, because I do function as that for the audience, is like you understand fully what Jane's feeling, and every thought that you have is Jane's thought, and so because of that I had to make sure I was very clear on what that meant for Jane. And for somebody as smart as Jane, she's quite innocent. And to tap into that at the age that I am now, I think all that meant was just really seeing the beauty that the world had to offer behind all the like messiness and the negativity, and going back to like just learning things again, like why things are the way that they are, and just being able to, I know we always listen to our scene partners when we do scenes, but like really understanding why certain characters, or even like Jane's friends, are the way that they are, and it just goes down to like even characters like Susan, who you think are like the queen bee mean girl. It's like we later find out why she is that way, and we can form some sort of empathy towards her. And I just think that Jane is open-minded and open-hearted, and leads with that. And that was just the goal for me, is to always put um, yeah, I think I explained it well, but you get the idea. But she's very important to me, and I think I've already learned so much from her.
That's great. And the series is so ambitious, packed with creativity, costumes, hair, music, cinematography, dancing. It's just nonstop. Every scene. I mean, there's got to be stories for pretty much every frame, every corner of the frame. And in addition, there's these big musical acts. So as someone with your background, this must be a dream. Pretty much performing a full musical with every episode. That's for a 10 episode season. That's pretty monumental task. What's that process been like, and where does it start for you? I mean, I'm sure there's many layers to it.
It's huge. I mean, even just our soundtrack, written by the amazing Justin Tranter and their team, Grammy winning, and we're so lucky to have them. I mean, it's we have 31 songs and 30 original songs with our cover of Grease is the Word. And even then I'm like, oh, we are like making, like, it feels like two cast albums worth of music. And at the time we always said, between our castmates, like it feels like we are making 10 feature films at the quality and the production quality that we're pumping these out with. And the musical content for television and film is making its way up more than it has in previous years, and we've seen that, and especially in television, we saw that the beginning with like Grease or Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and now High School Musical, and Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. Like it's definitely blending its way into a format that now we can like use from here on out. But truly, like even when we were shooting our show, it's still something that we have to troubleshoot and figure out like what's the most efficient way to make something like this. And with a cast as big as ours and an ensemble and a background, like we had, and you can fact check this of what I'm about to say with Paramount, but I believe what I was told is we were one of the biggest casts that Paramount has ever had, and at the height
Oh, I can believe it.
of COVID and the pandemic, like that in itself was a monumental task. And it seems like we have an episode that came out today that has a huge dance number inside the Frosty Palace, and that was at least over 50 people in one room, and we were all like, all right, everyone, cross your fingers, nobody gets sick, you know. And we were just like risking a lot to make a show something like this, and then on top of that, of just wanting everything to be amazing. But they cast theater kids. Like we truly are the best people to work on our feet, to learn things quickly, and to be able to kind of go like this most of the time. And
Well done.
it looked everything. Thank you. I don't know if I could do it the other. I don't. Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to try. Uh, every cast member's experience was different, just because some people had more scenes in one episode while others, you know, and for me, I was always on set, and because of that, I missed most of the time. They had to schedule rehearsals without me, and then you know time would run around, and then I get to set, and they'd be like, "Okay, well, can we pull you to the side and teach you this number right before we shoot it?" And I'm like, "Yeah," you know, and that was just a muscle that I really had to break out again, and eventually it just became secondhand nature. And I've never been more impressed with the talent and the work ethic of the people on the show. I mean, even in that number I was mentioning that came out this week, one of our actors, Alexis, who plays Potato, I saw him on the side in between takes, like on his phone, and I look, and it's this giant paragraph of words. I was like, "What are you doing?" He was like, "I have an essay due in 2 hours for college," and I'm like, "You're insane! This is incredible!" Like everyone just took on so much, and I think it shows when you watch how much hard work and determination that it took, and yeah.
It just doesn't seem possible, you know. So you have to learn, of course, your lines, but then you have to not only sing but sing with others. Then you have to be, you know, this choreography, and it's like then putting it all together. I just like I can't imagine the production, the process. What it's not like, okay, got that shot, go to the next one. Is it, you know, you have so many parts on this, you know, spokes off this wheel to make it roll.
Truly. And I look back now and I go, I really don't know how we did any of that. Like it is a fever dream, it is a blur. And even, you know, again, in this one episode that comes out, there's one scene that we're all so very proud of. We have a 3-minute one shot.
Wow.
Where we don't cut, and the camera follows. Specifically, it's guided more so by our character Gil, who's played by Nicholas McDonough, and that was really, we didn't always have time to rehearse scenes, but that one was very much more about blocking and trying to figure out timing, because it's 3 minutes long, and it was the one day on set that we actually finished early, which is so ironic. But it didn't surprise us. It's like you're asking theater kids to do a 3-minute play of nonstop. You know, it's again, it's like the perfect people for the job, and
Yeah.
that for us was a really fun moment. And then, yeah, I mean, even for the songs where you have duets or group numbers, because of COVID, we didn't even get to record together in the studio. We all had to go in separately. So even just like being directed and understanding emotionally where we were for the numbers without having our other cast members there with us, yeah, it was a challenge, but I think we rose to it, and the work speaks for itself. I'd imagine.
I agree with you so much. It's as you go from episode to episode, and one, like you're dancing with paintings, you're having fears of you know, nuclear war, and all these like embedded in the music, capturing the era, but also part of the songs, part of this girl's, you know, psyche, I guess. And but then it just grows, it's not just one person on screen. And then it grows and you have like half a school on screen, dancing,
Hmm.
singing. It's impressive, the actual scale of it. And going back to the theater kids bit, I feel the ambitiousness of the process of the product, I'm sorry, of the project is only fueling that fire. I know people who, work in the arts, and nothing's better than having something that you have to rise up for and you have to challenge yourself. Excuse me. So I'm sure that, every time you get a new script out, I'd be like, oh, fantastic. Not like, oh no, I'm afraid, but I can't wait to take this on.
I don't think we were ever afraid. I think we were just excited. And when they would tell us like we're thinking about this for this number, it's like, whoa, we have never seen it. Let's do it. Like that was the attitude that we had. And we were so excited and impatient for our fellow musical theater kids in the world to see this, because we were so giddy and eager about what we've been able to make. And we're like, we know that like they're gonna freak out, because like I always say, if I wasn't on the show, I would be freaking out and I would be a fan and I would be binging it 24/7. And so we have that in the back of our minds. And yeah, it's just a big cast and a big crew. I mean, even as we get further in the season, you start to realize that characters that you meet can sing, and you
Mhm.
haven't even heard them sing until episode 8. And that's why I came across a comment the other day where a woman was like, just as when I thought I knew everybody could sing, I'm surprised by somebody else who can sing. And it's like, ha ha ha, we still have some things up our sleeve. And so it's just a really fun experience to enjoy, I think, and fun content to consume.
And what has it been the reaction to the series you know, from everyone across the board? And what's the like social vibe?
I think that, well, I only see positive things. And in the beginning, I think people were really skeptical, understandably so, because musical like this that's so beloved and has been on our radar for so many years, they're like, why are we digging this back up again? And what more of a story is there to tell? But I think I compare it to Wicked in that way. It's like we could have said that about the Wizard of Oz, and yet then
Mhm.
we would never have had Wicked, and everybody loves Wicked, and that's the origin story of Elphaba and Glinda, and this is the origin story of the Pink Ladies, and I think it has the same effect. And it's just been amazing to see the reaction online of people like the number that you were mentioning in the club with the paintings. It's like, whoa, they went there, and they're like, can't sing that song in public, but I want to, and seeing that people have like ordered our cast album on vinyl. It's like I never thought I would have a cast album, let
Oh,
alone it be on vinyl. And so for my birthday, I was like, can I get a record player so I could play my own album on vinyl? Like what a thing, what a sentence to say. It's just unbelievable. And I think our fans are hooked just as much as we are, and they want a season two too. And I want a season two just to be able to give them more story and to go back there with my friends and do even more breathtaking, awe-striking numbers and storylines, and just keep it going, keep the fun going.
that's great. And there's plenty more stories to be told. So let's make this happen.
Let's do it.
Come on, Paramount, do your thing. Um, there's this great dream quality to the series. Kind of, the film had some of that as well, where you're floating around. Often, for some reason, there's a lot of floating. What is that like on you? It's you're essentially doing some stunt work there, right? Is that new to you?
Yes, stunt work is very new to me, and it's interesting because depending on what we were trying to do, they decide whether it was worth harming their cast members or not. Like what stunts would they let us do on our own, or what stunt? Because like Jason volunteered to do the fall off of the counter for Take the Wheel, and they're like, I don't know about that, and he did it very well, and we're like, whew, we don't want him to actually break an arm, and things like the floating were so fun because the car floated at the end of Grease, and we're kind of bringing those symbolism back, and oh yeah, and again, like a show like, who knew I would get to float in the air? When I booked this role, I had no idea that that was down the line for me, and now I can add that to my resume. I can do my own stunts, to a fault. I don't know. Yeah.
What is it like revisiting high school? So you have football games, classes, bullies, school dances, the lunchroom all over again. Is there any PTSD?
100%. I think, when I was in high school, I don't consider myself to belong to any like specific friend group just because I was just way too busy to even try. And like depending on what high schools are like these days, you had different people in each of your classes. So even if you got friends in one class, you'd have different people in the other class that you'd have to find somebody there too to stick with. And I think my people were definitely in choir, which is the class that did the musicals, and and then I had friends in my extracurriculars at dance and at community theater as well. And so I very much I'm a people person, so I definitely didn't stray away from talking to everybody. I just don't really feel like I had a specific place that I belonged, which is how I relate to Jane a lot. And girls are so nasty in high school. Like, to relive that again at Rydell is like, whew, I'm just like, sign me up for therapy. But the way, like when my was handling that stuff in high school, what my mom taught me when I was a kid is, the very classic, like, just keep your head down, do your own thing. And most of the time, those kind of people are just going through things at home that they don't know how to process. So it's actually nothing personal, and kill them with kindness, kind of a thing. And so I think Jane takes that and just runs with it, and she takes matters into her own hands, and things that she does, I would have never had the courage to do. And like confronting people, or even confronting the whole school at an assembly and being like, do you guys see what's happening here? Like, I would have been like at school, been like, like sneaking back in my seat, and or even just like the fact that Jane has two love interests. I was like, I didn't even think I'd ever get to play a character like that. And to have that inner battle between like, what does Jane deserve in terms of love? What is love? And like, do you even know what that is at that age? And it's just been so many facets to a character, and it's been so fun to play.
Is there anything else that I didn't bring up that, favorite moments or favorite aspects of the series, or something you'd like to, expand on? Because I feel like I cover it all, and then like, why didn't I ask that question? Is there something
No,
that you love that you'd like to share with the fans?
I think we talked about a lot, and I've had just the best time just chatting with you about the show. I think one thing that helped me a lot, that I noticed in the beginning when I was studying the material is, I called Annabelle up, our showrunner, and I was like, I'm noticing a lot that this Jane and Olivia relationship is really special. And I'm finding that, like, always at the end of time, like it's really just the two of them that come out on hopefully unscathed, and just sticking together. And she's like, yeah, I mean, this is a female friendship love story, and how important it is to have people like that on your side. And it really is about finding your people that celebrate who you are. And so I want people to ever forget that. And what a beautiful story to tell.
And if you could bring back one part of the era, the 1950s, what would it be? And to be present in today's world?
I think definitely. Oh, I can bring a couple things back. Is that okay? It has to be
Sure.
one, or can it be
No,
multiple?
no, no, no rules here.
Love the no phones. Loved the no social media. It definitely didn't, like, there was still drama without it, so we don't need it to add anything.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of drama.
So much drama. Love the music, love the outfits, love the dancing. I love that, like, in back then people weren't afraid to just like pull each other on the dance floor and start dancing, and I would love to do that now. And I love the hair. However, it takes so long, and like I don't want girls to stand in front of a mirror longer than we already do. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like primping. Although, like, I just loved um, every day getting to wear that hairstyle. That even like on my off days, I'd like straighten my hair and go out in public and be like, "This is so boring. Like, why don't we get creative anymore?" And so, yeah, those are the things I would brag. I wouldn't bring back any of the like racism, misogyny, any of that stuff. Unfortunately, well,
Yeah,
it is still very present to this day, so I
I
really
was going to
didn't
say,
have a
unfortunately,
choice,
some
did
of it's still
I?
here, but we're working on, removing that. So
We're working on that. I mean, that is the Pink Lady's goal, back in the 50s and today. So,
yeah, well, it's good to have, like I said earlier on, it's to inspire and to show these strong women and to have them just do their own thing in so many ways. There's constant,
Yeah.
every episode they're surprising you with the way they approach situations, let's say. And it's good to have brave characters who aren't sitting in front of the mirror, who aren't, well, it wouldn't be in this era anyways, but TikTok and all this things that people are so locked in now. It's about being themselves and fighting to have that freedom to be themselves.
I agree. And there's nothing wrong with TikTok. And I know that's not what you were saying, but like just to speak on that, like there's nothing wrong with any of that, and that is like now our current form of self-expression, and I love seeing just what people come up with. It's just like we are that, but we are also more than that. And we can have the female rage, and we can have the like what Cynthia's character is going through, like the sexual confusion, and we can have just like the anger and the PTSD that Nancy has, and we can have the what's it called, insecurities that Olivia has, with people just like staring at her and not actually talking to her. Like we have all of that, and I think it's important to see women in all those environments and understand what they're going through, while also knowing that like if they were alive, present in this day, they probably would be doing TikToks, but they'd be going through the same things. And I think it's a great way to see all sides of our girls.
You're true. It is self-expression, I guess. It's just, I prefer the older era of doing so, getting on stage and grabbing a mic and saying you're running for president.
Totally. Hey, me too.
That's my thing. So one quick question to wrap up. Should be easy. 3 words to describe Jane.
Powerhouse. Is that one word? 2.
Yeah, that's one.
Powerhouse.
You can use hyphens if needed.
Okay. Powerhouse. Courageous. Kind.
Excellent. I love that. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to watching the rest of the series and seeing your work.
That means a lot. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in and supporting us so well.